I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name is Erin Wygant. I work for the San Juan Islands Visitors Bureau, and this is our 13th annual Savor the San Juans, which is our fall celebration of farms, food, and films. We so wish that we could be doing these wine tastings and farm tours and cooking classes with you in person, but we're thrilled that you're joining us here virtually on Zoom. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our hosts for this evening, Brent and Maggie of Lopez Island Vineyards.
Hey, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to let someone else in from the meeting room here. Brent and Maggie have so graciously decided to take us through 3 different wine tastings of their delicious wine that I'm so excited to drink with you all. But before we start the wine tasting, we are going to take a tour of their vineyard. They have this beautiful property on Lopez Island where they grow some of this delicious wine. So before we start tasting, we're going to visit the vineyard. So let's take a trip.
My name's Brent Charnley. My wife Maggie and I started this vineyard 33 years ago. This sort of crazy idea all started back when I was about 21 years old and had been working on the ferries for the summer times and could see people starting small farms around the islands. I could also see it was a lot of work for maybe not a lot of money. So that's when the idea first came of something value added and shelf stable. It ended up being better than I expected. It's a particularly warm spot here on the island. The islands are cool due to the cool, moist air coming off of the straits twice a day with that cold water. But you get further inland like this, you get the right aspect of the slope, and you can get quite a bit more heat. We're at about 5 acres right now, and it's principally split between Madeleine angevine, which is right here behind us. It's a French wine grape from the Loire Valley. And the other was Siegerrebe. It's a German wine grape. Since the beginning, part of the business plan, of course, was to run a tasting room and allow people to come and actually see what we were doing. Part of our tasting room has been to introduce people to these unusual grape varieties. And it's sort of unique in Washington for a winery to have a vineyard as well. Out of the now approximately 1,000 wineries in the state, very few of those actually have some vineyard of their own. We're able to introduce them to these unusual wines, which initially was a bit of a struggle getting people to even try or consider Madeleine angevine or Siegerrebe. But the wines really spoke for themselves, and as time has gone on, now people are seeking the unusual, and these grapes have become a niche for us because very few people grow them. They would not grow well in eastern Washington, and you really only find them in the Salish Sea, Puget Sound area. I'll let the wine speak for itself.
All right. Well, thank you, Brent, for that tour. It is an absolutely beautiful piece of property on Lopez, and I hope you all, during a non-COVID year, have the chance to go experience Lopez Island Vineyards and their beautiful tasting room. But for now, let's sip some of their wines. I will toss it over to Brent and Maggie here as they take us through the tasting.
Well, welcome again. Thanks for joining us. And this is, of course, new to us as it is to you. So we'll just dive right into it.
And we can't see you.
So
just so you know, we're looking at
we appreciate you being here and having the interest. The first wine we'll try is the Madeleine angevine. It's the crisp, dry white, the one mentioned in the video that is from the Loire Valley originally. Since we're opening 3 bottles of wine, there may not be a party at your house. So we recommend just pour a small sample. You'd be able to cork the bottle and the wine will keep well for another few days. So you can spread out. You don't have to feel like you drink 3 bottles tonight.
Unless you want to.
And yeah, these crazy times, maybe you might want to, but let's just sort of get back to our senses here and give a smell of the Madeleine angevine. We always get a sort of tropical fruit quality to this grape, some citrusy notes, and sometimes there's an herbal note as well. That's why we sort of found it's most similar to Sauvignon Blanc, particularly one from a French one from the Loire Valley area.
They already tasted. If we could see you, we'd know what you were doing.
This wine is just wonderful. We're sort of at the tail end of crab season, but to pair with crab, with oysters, other seafood, that nice crispness, the citrusy note, just seems to go really well with seafood. It doesn't overpower it, particularly delicate things like crab. I'm getting the nice crisp finish. There's definitely a lemony citrus middle on the palate. And this was our 2018 vintage we're tasting here. Yeah, we're nearly out of that, but I figure everybody, that's probably the vintage you have. It's the one that's been on the shelves.
Brent, we have some questions coming in from the chat, which reminds me to remind all of you to feel free to use the chat to ask questions. We're wondering, could you please tell us the names of the 2 grapes that are in the Madeleine Angevine?
Just one grape. Madeleine Angevine is the name of the grape variety. It's an old variety from the Anjou region of the Loire Valley. I don't want to get too technical, but its parentage is known. It's even more obscure grapes. It came to Washington in the mid-70s by WSU through a research station over in Mount Vernon, where they planted experimental vineyards and grapes suited to the western side of the mountains. I think Mad Angie, as we like to call her, she's been grown in England, is grown in England for winemaking, and up in British Columbia as well as here in Western Washington.
We have another question asking, what is the best temperature to serve the Madeleine Angevine?
Ours is right out of the cellar here, which is just chilly, but not cold. We found that if it's too cold, too much of the flavor is just inhibited. So, a good 45, 50 degrees.
All right, good to know. And it sounds like, or it looks like here, Jackie is tasting the 2017. So thanks for joining us, Jackie, with the 2017.
Great. And the 2019 will be hitting the shelves soon. So you might watch for that, and it'll be interesting to compare the vintages. Every year is just a little different in the qualities that come out in a cooler climate like this. So I'm excited about the 19. We bottled it a month and a half ago or so, and I was pretty excited about it going into the bottle. And once Madeleine is a good year and a half old is when we found it really tastes its best.
After it's been bottled, actually. That's why this is tasting really nice.
Yeah. Are there any other questions on the Madeleine?
Doesn't look like it.
Yeah. Well, enjoy another sip, and we'll move on to the second white. So we'll move to the Sigareba. And again, this is the name of the grape variety. And it was the grape in the video that had the reddish purplish hue to it. It's very lightly colored, and you can sort of see, maybe compared to the Madeleine, the wine's a little darker for that reason. Some of that color holds through, but not much. Sigareba comes from Germany, and it's grown down extensively in southern Germany in sort of that Alsatian neighborhood of France and Germany. And its parents, mom is Mad Angie, and Gewürztraminer was the other grape that was crossed over 100 years ago to create this early ripening variety. It looks a lot like Gewürztraminer on the vine. It ripens a good bit earlier, and it's, I think, a little more fruity, a hint of floralness, and but carries that spiciness that Gewürz does. So in wine tasting, it's always pretty good practice when you poured it out to just go ahead and smell it without doing anything and see what the aromas are like. I'm getting the tropical sort of lychee or hardy kiwi is another flavor that this grape has. Now I like to give it a swirl and release more of the aromas. Yeah, and there's totally different notes now. Maybe a hint of grapefruit. And then in tasting, you'll find you'll get a lot more flavor. The flavors really come from the aromas. Taste is sweet, sour, bitter, but what we think of as flavor really comes from the aromas. So by holding it in your mouth and swishing it around, you'll get the tastes of the grape, the acidity, the sweetness, things like that. But if you then slurp a little air through it, it helps carry the aromatics up into your sinuses, and you'll pick up flavor, and quite a bit more than you just swish it down, which is fun to do on a hot summer day with a nice cold glass of Siegerräbe. But here we are, let's taste it instead of...
And this is our 19 too, so we are tasting our own new vintage. You might not have this one. It's just come out on the shelves, I think, in the last month or so.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, I get some orange, maybe mandarin orange. I'm not getting the lychee so much or the kiwi, but more in that citrusy notes and the hint of spiciness in the aftertaste. We love to pair this with, Maggie's a great cook, and when we do sort of Southeast Asian cuisine, something a little spicy like curries, this wine's a great pairing because it's got that spicy notes, but then the hint of sweetness helps take the hot off your palate. I find it does it better than like beer or a dry wine. Do you have any questions on Siegerräbe?
We have a question coming in asking about your growing process.
Okay. As I said in the intro, we've been farming here on a vineyard 33 years, and we were the ones that started it from taking little sticks, cuttings, dormant cuttings, and rooting them and then transplanting them to the vineyard. The fields we farm were hay pasture since they were cleared by the Blake family who settled this property back in the 1800s. It's a stony loam, stony rocky loam. We have tons and tons of rock that our boys, when they were young, helped us move out of the field. And
we still grow new ones every year. Rocks. We just grow all new, whatever.
Yeah.
Plants of rocks.
We started farming organically, and back in 1987, there was not a certified process yet for organic growers, which sort of the legally defined methods and materials that were allowed. Once certification was approved in Washington State, we got certified. Now it's probably 89. We were organic grower number 119. And for years, there were only 2 or 3 organic vineyards in the state. I don't know how many there are now. A lot of them maybe grow and farm and are certified organic, but they don't label the wine, so you wouldn't know unless you were talking to the grower and the producer. So our methods, generally we're dry farmed, meaning that we don't irrigate. What we do is a cultivation during the summer to control weeds and also to conserve water. This was a summer where we did not have to irrigate. There was enough soil moisture, and with the weed control, we were able to get right through the harvest without having to add water to it. We're lucky on being in an isolated place like this with no historical vineyards, in that there's no real insect pests except yellow jackets who love sweet, ripe grapes. And this
And
was—
they're big pests.
Yeah.
We only need them. We don't
Okay.
need more than them.
Yeah. And then we have powdery mildew, which any of you who grow, cucumbers or tomatoes, or you maybe can see it on the maple trees. Powdery mildew is just endemic
Roses.
in the climate, so we have to spray to control for that. And that we use some beneficial fungi. We also use sulfur for part of the year. It's fairly easy to control, but you have to be right on top of it. It's like everything. So, the growing it's almost a year-round thing. Maggie was just saying the other day, it's time to start planning next year because the grapes are in, everything's put away, and pretty soon as we've had a good hard freeze, we'll be back to pruning.
Great. Well, Brent,
Yes,
this is delicious.
One
It
other
really
element
tastes really good.
yeah, on the Sigareba is the name is a hard one, so you could call it Ziege if you want, but Ziege is in German is champion or king, and Reba is grape. So the name means champion grape.
And we did not name these grapes.
Yeah. So we give them our pet names, Matt, Angie, and Ziggy.
I want to take this minute to thank those of you who are writing questions in the chat. I'm getting messages on my phone that people are trying to reach the chat, but I'm not seeing them pop up. So if you would like to unmute yourselves and ask a question, feel free to do that at this time, or else we'll move on to the third and final wine. But it looks like the chat function is not working right now. My apologies. So please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask any questions.
Hi from Seattle. I was just wondering, Brent, is the temperature for the Sigarebe the same as Mad Angie? It's just kind of straight out of the cellar, or do you chill it more?
We like to chill it more. Yeah, so coming out of the fridge, it's just such a flavorful grape. Even that cold, you'll get flavor. You'll notice more flavor as the wine warms up some, but a nice cold wine, particularly, as I said earlier, the summer day, it's so refreshing of a wine. So yeah, we do a little colder.
I was wondering if you could tell us the spelling of the two names of the grapes, because we can't see the bottles clearly. And
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Well, yeah, even
sure.
if I held them up, you couldn't. Maybe. I don't know.
Well, we can try.
no, we don't see
too
anything.
bleached out.
Oh,
Yeah.
bleached out.
Okay, so Madeleine is like Madeleine, like the French storybooks of little Madeleine in the nunnery, and then angevine is Angevine.
Okay, got that.
Got that? And then Sigareba is Sieg for Zieg, and then Reba is Errebe.
Yours. I misspell it all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, did you get that?
Yeah.
I wanted to branch out and get into some other varieties that weren't that common in this state yet. Malbec was the first of those. I think 2002 might have been the first time we made Malbec. And then we've been making Sangiovese for about 10 years now. We get it from the Rattlesnake Hills, which is the northern part of the Yakima Valley. The soils are different than the valley bottom. It's the native basalt soils, basalt-derived soils. And we found this vineyard, Elephant Mountain Vineyard. It's run by Joe Hattrop. It's on the western end of the Rattlesnake Hills. And I've just been really happy with the Sangiovese from there. Their farming is spectacular. They know how to grow a good quality grape. This 2018 spent about 18 months in neutral oak barrels. And that means the barrels have been used repeatedly and any oakiness has already been extracted by previous wine. That'd be principally our Cabernet and Malbec that we make our Ravenscaw red blend with. And then those barrels, once they're sort of no longer giving up an oaky flavor, we use them for the Sangiovese and Merlot that we produce. So about a year in the barrels, and then this wine is turned out really well. We got a double gold and best of class award in a recent Northwest International Wine Judging. I think it's even going to get better as more time goes on, but let's all have a smell. I always get a lot of berry note from Sangiovese, maybe leaning more towards raspberry, whereas Cabernet might lean more towards blackberry, and then a nice spiciness and herbal notes. Just no mistake that Sangiovese goes really well with Italian cuisine, with all the herbs and things that are in that Northern Italian foods. I think Sangiovese has got to be probably my favorite red these days. There's tannin and structure to it, but it's not overly tannic so that your mouth just goes numb and you have to wait another 10 years before you can enjoy a bottle of your Cabernet or something. I think Sangiovese is just much more food friendly, and you're able to enjoy it much sooner in the life of its particular vintage.
It's quite good. We're enjoying it with a nice uncured salami.
Yeah. Where do you live?
So Brent, just so you know, this is Jim Lett's daughters here.
Oh, hi.
Yeah, hi there. Yeah, you can't see us, but we're channeling. We've got our Lopez Vineyard glasses here we're using.
Great. So are we.
Nice to have you with us.
Brent, it looks like our chat function
Any other questions out there?
Yeah, it looks like our chat function is working again, and we just have a comment saying this is delicious. So thought you should know.
Yeah. Good, good. We hope you'll look at our other wines sometime. You know, we didn't want to overload, you know, tasting will do 5 or 6 wines when we're normally open, but we didn't want everybody opening that much wine. We wanted to keep this sweet and short. But as you can sort of see here, we've just reaped a lot of awards on the wines this year. I think everything we've got on the shelf is spectacular, and we're pretty proud of it. The Cigarreba we tasted has had 2 different gold medals, and the Madeleine has won a couple silvers. And then the new vintage coming out we'll see how it shakes out, but I feel even better about it. So.
Brent, would you tell us how we can get your wines, where we can find Lopez Island Vineyard wines, what states you are able to ship to? How might we get more of your wines?
Okay. We are available in almost all the markets in San Juan County. So like on Orcas, the Orcas Village Store, Orcas Island Market. There's a couple of the wines over at what's now the Orcas Co-op. And on San Juan Island, Kings and Friday Harbor Market, and out at Roach Harbor. A couple of the wines down at the Island Wine Company. In Anacortes, we recommend the Store Grocery, which is way up Commercial Avenue past the roundabout. And it's a little bakery and convenience store, but he's got a great selection of wines, and all our wines are there. A few at Compass Wines. And then in Seattle, it's through farmers markets. We have one more farmers market at Lake Forest Park on November 22nd. And otherwise, the markets won't open again till May. And we do Edmonds and Everett, as well as Lake Forest Park. Our website has shipping on it. Right now, Oregon and California will come right up. You'll be able to order online by visiting lopezislandvineyards.com. Other states, it's sort of state by state. The laws are different. There's 50 different sets of laws. And if you're interested in finding out whether you can ship to you, just drop us an email or a phone call. And there's only a handful of states we can't ship to.
Cannot ship. Cannot.
Yeah.
Mostly we can't. Most states.
I
Brent,
have
we
a
have,
short little question. I mean, Sangiovese, pardon? Sangiovese is very well known, but I think the other two grapes are kind of unusual. How did you find them?
That's a great question. It, Western Washington is cool, so the most well-known grapes will not ripen on this side of the Cascade Mountains, and that's partly why that experiment was put in by Washington State University in Mount Vernon. In Madeleine, angevine, they had at least 30 different grape varieties in that trial. I then, as part of the early part of my career, I took a winemaking job for Mount Baker Vineyards in 1983 up in the Nooksack Valley. And he planted all 30 of those varieties, and I got to make wine from them. So I was able to sort of ascertain from these varieties what quality of wine they made and how well did they ripen in our region. About that time, I planted experimental plantings here on Lopez on 3 different locations. Those of you on San Juan Island may remember Alton Boyce. He planted a small little experimental vineyard on his land in a very sheltered spot. It's next to what's now San Juan Vineyards. So I was able to look at those results from Washington State University, from experimental plantings here on Lopez, and then winemaking at Mount Baker Vineyards to make the choice. I felt like they were going to be the most reliable. We have a little Pinot Noir in our vineyard, and it takes a warm year, but in a nice hot year, we get a good wine from it. There are places in Puget Sound where it's consistently warmer, and they're growing Pinot Noir every year and getting, except in the coldest years, getting good quality wine. One of those is Skagit Crest Vineyards up the Skagit Valley, down on Bainbridge Island Vineyards, Vashon Winery over on Vashon Island and Murray Island Vineyard. There's also one up near Stanwood called Bayonmore Vineyards, and they're growing exclusively Pinot Noir. So those are grapes that grow around here. You just got to get through from, right out there is the Straits of Juan de Fuca, and every day 48-degree water comes in twice. And so it keeps it a little cooler out here. We need to go with these extremely early ripening grapes.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Brent, we have a question from the chat asking, would any of these wines be better to be aged, or are they going to be better if you drink them sooner?
We have tasted 5-year-old Madeleine, angevine, and Cigarette, and they've been brilliant. Usually that would be from a vintage that has a nice crisp acidity. We'd recommend shorter period than that, up to 3 years. We feel really confident in those wines for a life that long. Sangiovese, yes, Sangiovese easily 10 years, maybe longer. I don't have the experience with Washington Sangiovese yet to give an informed opinion, but I would have confidence go longer than that.
We should try. See if we have an old one to try.
Yeah.
That old. A 10 year.
I would like to open it up to anyone at this time who would like to unmute themselves and ask a question. We are reaching the end of our tasting right now, but we have such a wealth of information from Brent and Maggie here, so feel free to ask your questions.
We're having two.
I'd urge anyone in the San Juans to take a look out west right now.
Yeah,
There's just a brilliant orange sunset.
yeah, this is beautiful.
Gotta love these fall days when the grapes are in and the winemaking's done and we get these spectacular sunsets.
Wow.
Brent, this is Suzanne, Jim's daughter. I was curious, with COVID, I feel like a lot of wineries have continued to do well. And some have like the sort. How has COVID impacted your sales? Has it stayed steady? Has it increased them? I hope they haven't decreased. I was just curious.
Yeah, good question. Sort of depth of the COVID closed down and what would be the second quarter, April through the end of June, we did see a large decline in sales, primarily because farmers markets were in pre-order status. People weren't going out. We saw an increase of distribution through the markets like here on Lopez, over on San Juan. And that held through then into the summer. As the farmers markets picked up, our sales came back much closer to normal, much closer to the previous year. So it's been a challenging year in that regard, just because it sort of dipped and then it's come up and future seems a little unknown. Once we pass the holidays, wine sales always drop off anyway. So that's something we always have to plan for. And,
Well, we're going to continue to support you.
Yeah, this family you can count on.
Yeah.
Brent,
About, I don't know, 100 of you guys.
We're doing our best. We've been busy posting.
Yes, I had a friend in Atlanta, Georgia ask that because I posted the Sangiovese and they wanted to know if you guys ship. So we gave them your website.
Great.
Let's hope we can send it to Georgia.
I know. Let's hope.
Yeah.
Right.
Brent, we
Hey,
have
Brent and Maggie. Oops.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Erin? Oh, hi, Brent and Maggie. It's Barbara from the Visitors Bureau. And I just wanted to say I have some 2017 Zigareba here from Marketplace, and it is absolutely delicious. So thank you so much for doing this and educating us all. And it's good to see you virtually.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, Barbara.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to jump in. This is Prudy. Hey, I finally managed to get to a place where I could zoom in. So yeah, this is so fun. So Brent, what's your favorite? I might have missed it in the early part, but what's your favorite? And hi, Maggie. What's your favorite vintage in the last 10 years up at Lopez? And what was this year like? Just, did you already kind of run over that? But I'm just curious, like, when did you harvest? Was it early? And in the last 10 years, what's your favorite vintage?
That's a great question. I think for Eastern Washington wines, the 2016 was really stellar. And the 2018 being slightly cooler produced, this wine, which I'm really happy with. So those two vintages stand out right now. 2019 is unknown, sort of like you experienced down in California, Prudy. There was smoke in Eastern Washington.
No, you mean 2020.
2020, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Kind of matters which year you say.
Yeah,
it does run by.
yeah. We had a lot of smoke here, but no close fires. We were getting the smoke from Oregon and California wafting up, and there was almost a week of very dense smoke, sort of quarter-mile visibility. But since the fires weren't close by, I'm not too concerned about those on our grapes. This year, I'm pretty excited about. We got just beautiful dryness right up to harvest. So we were able to pick just stellar quality grapes, no mildew or molds in the grapes this year at all. And partly that was the weather, but partly we just had some really excellent help in the vineyard by a couple of young islanders.
Great.
One of whom studying grapes and wine over at Walla Walla. So the two of them, brilliant young women, and really helped us see it through. So on our vintages, I hold a lot of hope on the 2020. And looking back, the 2016 was also a really wonderful year.
Cool. Great.
Yeah.
Love the Sigarabe. You do such a great job with it, Brent. You really do. And I love
you.
your Sangiovese. Fantastic.
Good to hear. Good to hear. I'm glad you got a hold of them.
I did. Yeah, we went to the market. That worked great.
Up there, the little store.
Yeah, the little store there at the top of Anacortes.
That may be something people will be looking at. We're already seeing much more in the way of grape growing up north, up the Okanagan Valley, in Washington and in Canada. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when I started in Washington viticulture, those places had ongoing issues with winter cold killing the grapes. And now that hasn't happened, and vineyards are expanding in those areas and very successfully. On this side of the mountains, I think more and more people are sticking their necks out and experimenting with the different Pinot Noir clones. There was a paper published by sort of a climate ecologist, scientist from Southern Oregon University about the advancing of viticulture further and further north as it warms during this century. So I think we'll see more and more Pinot Noir grown in this area. And in Oregon, we'll see more and more planting of later ripening grapes, Cabernet and some of the Italian varieties and stuff like that. That's already going on down in the Rogue River area, but we'll see it up in the Willamette Valley too. Fires are going to be an ongoing issue everywhere. I was ordering supplies down from Napa Valley, and it was just heartbreaking to talk to them down there. You know, friends of theirs who've lost their homes, who've lost their wineries, some of the vineyards too. So this is going to be an issue. Eastern Washington is, at least the Yakima Valley and Walla Walla and those places that don't have forests, is grassland fires, and they're much less serious. But up in Chelan, we've already seen disasters there with wineries burning to the ground. Anywhere where you have forests, it could be here too. It's going to be more of a concern, and people are going to need to be proactive about it. That was a long climate answer. I hope it was useful.
It was. I could listen to you for a lot longer, Brent.
Great.
Well, if there,
I have one quick question. This is Leanne Jackie, and we have a 2006 Cabernet, I think, from you guys. And we've been saving it for a special occasion, but we're wondering what would you pair with that? Like a steak or something really, or something lighter?
Yeah, I would definitely consider steak. That's the kind of wine we'll pour out of the cellar when we're going to grill some steak or something really hearty.
I don't know if we're that good at actually knowing, because
Yeah.
we don't do it very
Yeah.
believe
But
it or
when we
not.
do, I think that 2006
Yeah, that's
would
what
be
we would go
a really
to, but
wonderful
I don't know
wine.
for
So
great.
yeah, I would not hesitate with a steak or something really full flavored, and it'll stand up to the smokiness if you're going to grill it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for that question. I think that's a beautiful segue into a plug I would like to make for our final Savor the San Juans event is this Friday, and it is a food and wine pairing 101 class with
That's
Dove Wine Company. Yeah, I'm so excited to learn about food and wine pairing with Cole Sisson, the sommelier on Orcas Island. So I hope you all can join us for that as well. But I wanted to say a huge, huge thank you to Brent and Maggie. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. This has been so informative and so fun. Thank you. And to all of you who joined us with your videos on or off, cheers. Thank you so much for a fun evening. Be sure to follow Lopez Island Vineyards on your social media, check out their website, and stop by the tasting room when you can.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Nat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.